Federal investigators in Southern California say they found what could be the longest cross-border drug tunnel.
The typical image of a smuggling operation usually involves hidden compartments in cars or small boats out at sea. But here is the catch. A massive organization in Texas was using legitimate big rig trucks and an underground fortress to move billions of dollars in illicit goods.
6 people are under arrest tonight after U.S. authorities discovered a drug tunnel between San Diego and Tijuana. The tunnel, the length of 6 football fields and 6 stories below ground, has rail tracks, ventilation, and electricity.
This setup was so professional that it included lighting, ventilation, and electric transport vehicles deep below the surface. When the FBI and DEA finally broke down the doors, they realized the rabbit hole went much deeper than a single warehouse. It was a 12-year masterclass in criminal logistics that relied on a web of bribes and shell companies. The industrial-grade smuggling passage. The raid began in the coldest hours of the morning when most of the city of Laredo was still fast asleep.
Tactical teams from the FBI and DEA moved with practiced silence, surrounding a massive, nondescript warehouse that looked like every other shipping facility in the area.
For months, thermal imagery and high-tech surveillance had been picking up strange heat signatures radiating from deep beneath the building. It was not that simple, though, because on the surface, everything looked perfectly legal. There were rows of trucks, stacks of pallets, and mountains of paperwork that checked out at every level. When the K-9 units were finally brought in, they immediately flagged a specific section of the concrete floor near the back of the building. Behind a cleverly disguised heavy steel door hidden under a layer of industrial shelving, the agents found the entrance to a world they were not prepared for. The passage dropped deep into the earth, revealing a tunnel that stretched for 1,400 feet with a level of craftsmanship that rivaled official city infrastructure. It was reinforced with thick concrete and steel beams to prevent any chance of a cave-in. There were fully functional electrical systems, bright lighting, and a ventilation network that kept the air fresh even hundreds of feet below the surface. This was hands down the most sophisticated structure of its kind ever found on American soil. The discovery of the tunnel was only the beginning of a much larger puzzle regarding how the organization moved its cargo across the country. So, here's the deal regarding how they actually got the goods out of the warehouse without being spotted by local patrols. The organization operated through a company known as Lana Regional Transport, which on paper was a high-volume logistics firm. They held contracts with some of the largest retailers in the country, which gave them a perfect excuse to have hundreds of trucks moving across state lines every single day. Basically, they were using the sheer volume of American commerce to hide their illegal activity. Trucks that were supposed to be carrying fresh lettuce, frozen chicken, or packaged beef were actually carrying millions of dollars in high-purity substances hidden in secret compartments. These compartments were built directly into the refrigerated walls of the trailers, making them almost impossible to detect during a standard roadside inspection. And get this, the company used fake documents and shell corporations to make every single shipment look like it was headed to a real grocery store. The drivers often had no idea what they were actually hauling, which added another layer of protection for the kingpins at the top. This system allowed them to move tons of material into major hubs like Dallas, Oklahoma City, and beyond, without ever raising a red flag. It was a perfectly designed machine that turned the legal transportation industry into a private delivery service for the cartel. While the transport side of things was impressive, the actual material being moved was what really caught the attention of medical professionals. The billion-dollar refinement process. The crazy part is that the material they were distributing was not the low-quality stuff usually found on the streets. For starters, the purity levels were off the charts, indicating that this was being produced in professional, industrial-scale facilities rather than makeshift labs. Doctors in rural hospitals across Texas and New Mexico started seeing a massive spike in emergency room visits involving people who had used the substance. What stood out most was how potent the material was, which caused tragic incidents even in very small amounts. The DEA realized that this was not just a local problem, but a coordinated national distribution of a highly refined product. This organization was not just selling a product. They were dominating the market by providing a level of quality that was far beyond what their competitors could offer. They had specialized chemists and high-tech equipment that allowed them to manufacture the material at a scale that was previously thought to be impossible for a criminal group. They were treating their illegal manufacturing like a legitimate pharmaceutical operation, with strict quality control and massive output. This allowed them to flood small towns and cities alike, creating a crisis that stretched from the border all the way to the Midwest in a matter of weeks. As the money started pouring in from these sales, the organization needed a way to hide their $2 billion fortune. Yeah, about that money, it turns out that hiding $2 billion is a lot harder than making it. To solve this massive problem, the syndicate built an incredibly complex network of shell companies and offshore bank accounts to launder their insane profits. What most people don't realize is that they also spent a significant portion of that money on buying protection from the very people meant to stop them. The investigation revealed a sickening level of corruption within the government, involving 19 different officials who were on the take. These individuals were paid anywhere from $18,000 to $75,000 to ensure that shipments were never inspected or that investigations were quietly shut down. These bribes were carefully calculated to be high enough to ensure loyalty, but low enough to stay under the radar of financial monitors. This protection allowed the smuggling operation to run for over 12 years without anyone being the wiser. The corrupt officials would create false documents, provide tips on upcoming raids, and even help move the cargo across state lines in government vehicles. It was a complete betrayal of the public trust that turned the legal system into a shield for the cartel empire. The money was funneled through international bank accounts and reinvested into legitimate real estate and businesses, making the criminal network even more difficult to dismantle. But here's the catch, and this is where things get truly weird. Some investigators believe that those 19 officials were just the tip of the iceberg. There is a wild theory circulating among deep cover agents that the Laredo Tunnel was not actually built by the cartel at all. Instead, get this, the theory suggests they stumbled upon an abandoned Cold War-era government evacuation route. This would explain how a 1,400-foot tunnel was built with such perfect industrial precision without anyone noticing the massive amount of dirt being moved. If the cartel just moved into an existing government ghost tunnel, it means there could be an entire map of underground highways beneath Texas that we don't even know about yet. It is not that simple, though, because if these tunnels were originally part of a secret federal project, it raises the question of who else has the keys. Some people think these passages might even connect to old black-budget bunkers that were supposed to be off the books since the 1960s. The crazy part is that the money laundering did not just involve fake companies and offshore accounts. There's a theory that the $2 billion was being used to literally buy entire small towns in South Texas and New Mexico. We are talking about car dealerships, local grocery stores, and even construction firms, all being owned by the same shadow organization. What most people don't realize is that when an economy becomes that dependent on dirty money, it becomes nearly impossible to pull the plug without the whole region collapsing. Basically, the cartel was acting like a shadow government, providing jobs and infrastructure, while the real government officials looked the other way. This created a layer of protection that was hands down more effective than any wall. Everyone's obsessed with the idea of a secret society, but this was a secret economy hiding in plain sight. And get this, Some whispers in the intelligence community suggest the purity of the material was so high because it was being refined using technology that should not even exist in a makeshift lab. The wild theory here is that the cartel had access to industrial-grade equipment stolen or diverted from high-level research facilities. This was not just a substance operation. For starters, it was a high-tech chemical enterprise. Some believe they were even experimenting with new ways to make the product undetectable to standard K9 units and chemical sensors by changing its molecular signature. If that is true, it means they were steps ahead of every law enforcement agency in the world. And that's putting it lightly. When you look at the 52-ton seizure, the numbers are just staggering. 52 tons is equivalent to the weight of nearly 10 adult elephants. Moving that much weight across the country requires a level of logistics that rivaled major shipping companies. The thing is, many experts believe that the $2 billion seized was only a fraction of what they actually made. There is a theory that the organization has another $5 billion stashed in digital currencies and physical gold buried in locations that were never written down. The scale of this betrayal shows that the fight is about much more than just stopping trucks on the highway. It is an ongoing war against a system that has learned to camouflage itself perfectly within our daily lives. What most people don't realize is that these tunnels might not just be for moving cargo. Some theorists suggest they were being used to move high-level individuals who wanted to disappear from the grid entirely. Imagine a shadow transport system where someone could travel from the heart of Mexico to deep inside the United States without ever being caught on a single camera or passing a single border guard. So, here's the deal. The Laredo Tunnel might have been the main artery, but the veins could stretch for thousands of miles. The industrial marvel of the tunnel proves that these organizations are no longer just gangs. They are transnational corporations with the resources of small nations. See, the coordinated raids resulted in the seizure of 52 tons of high-purity material, with a street value of $2 billion. This was the result of a 12-year operation that had deeply embedded itself into the American economy and government. While hundreds of people were arrested, the discovery of the tunnel and the corruption network proved that the fight is far from over. The organization had learned to use every single loophole in the legal system to its advantage, making it a ghost in the machine of society. Authorities now have to wonder how many other tunnels exist and how many more officials are currently taking payments to look the other way. The Laredo Tunnel was an industrial marvel, but it was also a monument to how clever these organizations have become. This bust was a major victory, but it also served as a wake-up call that the structures meant to protect the country are being exploited from the inside. The war against these empires is an ongoing struggle for integrity and transparency that will require years of constant vigilance to truly win. The question that remains is whether we have truly dismantled the empire or if we just forced them to dig deeper. So, here is the deal. After seeing how deep this cartel empire really went, do you think our legal systems are strong enough to stop these shadow businesses? Or is the corruption already too deep to fix? This discovery changes everything we thought we knew about border security and government trust. If you want to stay informed on the secret battles happening every day, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the world of military power and national security. What do you think is the biggest threat we are missing right now? Let us know in the comments below.